Andrew Young on Twitter asks, I'm doing a crazy amount of travel in the next 6 weeks: Miami, Dallas, Toronto, Las Vegas, and San Francisco. What are your best travel tips? Now, if you don't know who Andrew is, he's basically this uh, head lead of Google, ex Meta, investor, and he has a sizable following on Twitter where he kind of leads these tech parties. I've never met him in person. I stumbled across him on Twitter, and I'm going to answer his question. So it's funny because I've actually been to all of these cities in the last year, having been blessed with the ability to work remote. I have the ability to stay in all these cities, and I'll flash some footage on the screen throughout this video as proof. But I have endless videos in all these places on my YouTube channel because I've done a lot of vlogs in these cities for more proof. So check those out if you don't believe me. And so my first answer to this question is it depends. I mean, it depends on your goals, it depends on your lifestyle, it depends on what you struggle with and what uh, you want to get out of these places and what you have to offer when you enter these places. Having traveled and visited over 50 cities in the last 2 to 3 years, um, I really think it's context dependent. For example, for me, I can stay really long in a city if I really like it, and short if I don't. However, for Andrew, according to some of his other tweets, it looks like he's only staying in some of these cities for 2 days tops. So it seems to be more of a quick business trip, which definitely affects how I give advice for this. For example, he's only going to be in SF for uh, basically 3 days. I mean, and that probably includes flights as well. So for those reasons, I would give different tips versus someone who has a longer time span, say like 2 months in the city or 2 weeks. And depends on their goal. Some people, they want to see if the city is for them to move, to establish a social network there, um, for dating. And for Andrew, it looks like he's more so there for a quick trip to build his network for career reasons. And so I just want to give some context because when you just ask, what are your best travel tips? It depends so much on what you're after. Okay, so what do I have to say about each of these cities? Now, you're only going to be there for a short time, I assume, and therefore you're probably mostly focused on career goals. Also, I'm assuming that you're coming into these cities with a decent network already, people you know, people you want to meet, given that you have this strong Twitter following. That's key too, because I think another problem is uh, many people, myself included, come into these cities with zero. So we have to establish all of that. So since you have that, I don't really have to go into advice on that. Instead, I would kind of highlight the things and differences in each city in the short time you have to kind of, you know, veer your way towards better career networking. Now, I'll move toward quickly through the obvious ones because those are more easy. San Francisco, I'm going to basically skip that one because um, so many tech people there, so many Asians there. I mean, probably the most straightforward. He lives in New York, so I mean, I wouldn't say networking's like served to you on a silver platter there. However, if you actively go out, Google, search Eventbrite, all these other things, reach out to your network, you're bound to find stuff, and it's probably one of the cleanest cities on this list, so you're good to go there. Miami as well. I think that was more of a fun party city with a beach. I love the beach. I love going to the malls there. So lots of nightlife stuff to do there. And then others said, "Oh, it's superficial. It's hard to like get through the clicks." I found I was able to join some really fun activities such as Miami's running clubs. I mean, Brickell's Running Club, for example, is one of the largest in the country. When I was there, there's like 200 people in attendance. So I think there's lots of cool stuff to do there. However, for tech networking and career networking, especially, it's less sparse than SF, of course, but there is still stuff there. So I think your best bet is to look at places like BrainStation, which host networking events and are kind of hubs to train people to become engineers, to become designers, and so forth. And so get into hubs like that which already host networking and tech events to find out about other tech places. Maybe they're not hosting an event, but you can reach out to the event sponsors, the owners of that space to learn more about what other people or events you should know about. Other than that, I found cool stuff just off of Eventbrite and Meetup.com, and just like talking to people. So those two you won't have that much problem. Now I'm gonna choose Toronto next because that's a fun one. Now with Toronto, you got to realize it's in a different country, but also don't be scared about that. Um, I found it to be very akin to the US. In fact, people didn't even realize I was not Canadian there. They spoke the same, they acted the same, they dressed the same, which was shocking but true. So I don't think you'll have any problems there. It really is a nice city, almost like a cleaner, smaller New York. Um, Amazing Chinatown, clean area, public transit. Smaller city, but beautiful. Probably one of the cleaner ones out there. Maybe only second to SF. Now, as far as actually immersing into the tech scene there, I was more so there for tourism and experience, so I can't really say about that. However, I did notice there's a lot of smart people, professionals, and money in that city as well. Therefore, I don't think you will have any problems there. There really wasn't any cultural difference for the most part, and so I think you'll have a ball there. Once again, leverage your network because for me, as someone just traveling and working a remote job and have not built a Twitter following like you, that is not something where I can just go into that city and like immediately know people, be introduced to people, find those exclusive networking events. So you'll probably have a better time than me. Leverage your network. I'm sure there's stuff out there. I'm sure there's smart tech people out there. But um, yeah, I think for me, I can't give you tips on the networking part. You could probably give me tips on that because when I use Meetup.com and Eventbrite, there you only get kind of the scraps. The same thing with New York. I mean, I know there's stuff there, but when I was in New York, none of the good events were really on Meetup.com. I mean, if you go to a public networking event on Meetup.com, it's just a bunch of job seekers and it's terrible. So you probably know more than me, but the city itself is beautiful, great food, great nightlife, pretty cool. Smaller than you think. And that leaves Dallas and Las Vegas. So Dallas, more of a kind of mechanical city. Definitely don't expect people in cowboy hats everywhere. In fact, I didn't see any. So um, you may come in with preconceived notions what Texans are, but they're not necessarily these southern people with twang. I didn't encounter many people with accents either. Also, a very beautiful city, great barbecue spots, some of the best award-winning barbecue in the country there. So I was more so immersed in the food there and the museums there. Um, and as far as meeting people and establishing networking there are tech people there. There are established, successful tech people there too. I only met a couple just through meeting people out in Houston. So once again, kind of like Toronto, I can't really say about that part, but the city itself is pretty beautiful. And I would say out of all of these mentioned, probably the hardest to break into like the networking tech scene just off the bat, because unlike SF, it's not like half the city's tech. So for that, you're probably going to have to, reach out. Luckily, you have this Twitter following, which will really help you there. And yeah, if you want to explore, travel, experience, I mean, they have some great museums there. They have some great food there, and just some great establishments there. So really clean, nice city. Um, but in terms of career networking, I can't really say much about it. Because yeah, I think for the average person like me, just moving in zero into that city, I mean, you're basically limited to Meetup.com and Eventbrite, and if you don't see anything good there, I mean, you kind of just have to wish for the best, which means not much. You go to the grocery store, go to the gym, go home, maybe, join social clubs like running groups and see if you can. So, you can probably tell me some tips on how to break into that. But as far as the other elements of the city, awesome city. And last but not least, Las Vegas. I mean, this one's very unique because there's so many conventions and conferences going on here, but it's also this like heavy nightlife city with tons of nightlife, and it's like a town outside of the strip, but then in the strip, it's this like crazy place, especially at night, and it's small, but then it's also big because there's a lot of entrepreneurs here who are here because of the tax savings or whatever other reason. Alex Hormozy's here, Neil Patel's here, the list goes on. Graham Stephan is here, and so they're all living here for tax savings or whatnot. So clearly a lot of networking here, but also kind of a weird city because it's kind of known for this kind of, you know, superficial nightlife vibe. And is there that much else to do outside of the strip? Maybe, maybe not. It depends on your tastes and preferences. There's no beaches here. So I would say Vegas is probably the dark horse, the underdog, the one with the most potential but most overlooked. The tough part, like with many of these, is that while there are a ton of hot people, hot in the sense of like high status, successful entrepreneur types, they are not easy to get attention, get their time, or meet with them because they're being bombarded. I mean, you can only imagine how many messages Hormozy gets per day. So, in terms of travel tips, you're probably looking more so for just like how to get there, how to survive there, and enjoy. And you're not expected to meet these people. So, for that type of stuff, I can help you. I will, for the actually meeting these people, all I can say is that they are out there, but you'll have to use your network and Twitter presence to possibly meet them because they're not easy to get in contact with. But for just general travel tips, I would say Vegas, pretty easy from airport to where you're staying. Pretty affordable too. As far as transport, I would say personally I found Uber and Lyft to be more affordable than renting a car unless you're going to like more than 2 to 3 stops per day. Keep in mind you also have to pay for parking if you're in certain areas of the strip, and then on top of that there may be valet. And I think you really, with many of these places, you really have to map out where you want to go ahead of time, and figure out a plan. Because from my experience, just being this random guy trying to figure it out with less connections, I mean, many of these cities, they're not going to just serve you on a silver platter where to go. So they don't really tell you, so you have to kind of figure it out yourself. So figure out what are the events going on, what are any conferences happening during your time that you may want to go to meet these people, and so forth. As far as travel tips or flight hacks or stuff like that, I think people overweigh that, like, oh, that's That's what's going to get me the biggest bang for my buck. I don't think so. I mean, I'll give you some, but I think the biggest bang for your buck is really, searching up, doing your research, finding the events that you want to go to, finding the activities, the things that you want to make sure you see, and do your research through Google, through meetup.com to go to these things. For example, when I'm in Vegas, I want to see the Sphere. I want to see Valley of Fire State Park, and I want to, let's say, for example, go to this event where Neil Patel and Hormozi is speaking to potentially network with them or like-minded people. So you want to map that out, because otherwise, you go to these cities, you don't have a game plan. They don't really tell you. You have to actively go out of your way to seek a map, a plan of what's out there, and then go. Because I mean, it's not always like a lot of the good stuff. A lot of the attractive people, they're not just going to say, oh, you should be invited to this. I mean, maybe for you, but for the average person, no, we don't have that. So we got to kind of look it up. Okay, so in terms of like travel hacks, I just want to round it up by saying some of the good ones are Airbnb over hotels. I mean, hotels get so boring and stingy and generic. Airbnbs I've just found to be so fantastical. I'm in one now. Sometimes they're really well decorated. The furniture is really cool looking. Each one has a certain vibe similar to the city you're in. It's more homely and it's more accessible. You don't get certain amenities as elevated as a hotel in certain ways, but you get other amenities like a full kitchen, usually more flexibility with the host you're staying with. You get a TV usually with streaming services. So there's a lot of like better benefits to like a generic hotel. Another thing is when you're going to these places, do some quick Google searches like, best things to do in Miami or Toronto before you go. And then see if you can plan out some activities. I mean, these are some really hot, amazing places to visit. You're going to go there without seeing the Sphere. You're going to go there without seeing, South Beach or Niagara Falls. And so, yeah, I understand you may have a limited time, but I think seeing those things are not only lifetime bucket list achievements that are really fulfilling, but you can also build a portfolio, put that on your Instagram and really build that personal brand, showcasing that you're a high status individual who has been to these places and really, have all these memories to showcase. So, that's what I do. And it's not always some natural resource or, museum or beach, though it can be. It's just whatever you want to do or whatever's like most hot in these places that are really worth seeing. So Dallas, I went to some of the best barbecue, award-winning barbecue. Miami, of course, there's South Beach, there's the mall, there's Brickell, there's nightlife. Toronto, similar thing, Niagara Falls. Went to CN Tower, the aquarium. And so you really just got to get a list of what you want and then document that. It's a shame to go to these places and forget or fail to see something that's incredible. It's another shame to not document that with a good camera or good video. And hopefully this video helps. Thanks for watching. Subscribe.